100th episode. It's your boy Icon with some DC TV. We've reached 100 episodes of Legends of Tomorrow. Goddamn. I remember, it's funny, specifically with Legends. Like, I remember when the trailer, when the original trailer for Legends of Tomorrow first came out, it had nothing to do with Rip Hunter specifically. Like, he was involved, but and in the comment section, if you remember this, like, tell me. The original trailer for Legends of Tomorrow, it was Barry and Oliver on top of a rooftop with all of the legends, and Barry and Oliver were talking to them about joining Rip Hunter to save the timeline, because they brought up Vandal Savage and they said that they're their only hope. And I always remembered that because it made me feel like the show was going to be ingrained, like, heavily, like, into the rest of the Arrowverse, because that's when the Arrowverse first started building. Supergirl was on CBS at the time, so we had Flash, we had Arrow, and then we had Legends, which was the group superhero show. Every episode, the first 7 episodes of both Arrow and the Flash introduced all of the Legends characters. And again, and in that original trailer, it was Oliver and Barry that put the team together. But then when the show actually came out, they changed it. Because they do that all the time, especially like in Black Lightning. Like, if you look at the original Black Lightning trailer, like, half of what was in that original trailer did not did not happen when the actual show came out. I mean, they shot some of the Black Lightning, original trailer in jitters, for Christ's sake. But to see the show progress from what I thought it would be to what it turned into, it was very surprising. Like, it started off as a superhero time traveling show, and then as the show progressed and progressed and progressed, the superhero aspect of it started to go away. They went from superheroes time traveling to just time traveling, and then it went into time traveling and magic, and then they kind of went away from time travel and it became all about magic, and then aliens came in, and then you notice certain characters just slowly started to fade away. I mean, I always felt that Firestorm and Atom stayed on Legends of Tomorrow for way too long. I always thought that the two of them, because they were like modern time heroes. They weren't time traveling heroes. Like, they actually had stuff to contribute. Like, it makes sense why Nate would be on the Wave Rider, because he's a historian. It makes sense why certain characters that you pluck out of the timeline would be on the show. Like, even Constantine. Like, it made sense why Constantine was on the show. It made sense why Kid Flash was on the show. Legends was supposed to be Legends was supposed to be like the superhero version of the Suicide Squad, where it was supposed to be a rotating cast of people. And there were a lot of people that stayed on way too long, and there were people that should have stayed that that ended up leaving. When you find out that they have 7 seasons and they have 100 episodes, it's like you want to give it up and you want to applaud the Legends team and everybody involved. It's just crazy to me that Legends outlasted Black Lightning and Supergirl. So in this episode, in the 100th episode, I can't even pronounce the title. It's Wave Rider, Gideon, iOS, in trouble, something like that. So, but the episode focuses more on Astra, Spooner, and Gideon, which I'm not going to complain about, because you know how much I love me some Astra and Spooner. I feel like Astra, Spooner, and Gideon should just have their own spin-off show. But anyway, so the 3 of them, they're on their way to go save the Legends, because the Legends are headed to New York City. And when the Legends get to New York City, Gideon said that they're going to die. But as they're trying to, like, track them, they're trying to get to where they are. They're going through the fields. They're trying to hitchhike. Astra is just being completely difficult. And while they're doing the whole thing, they come across a woman's house, and there was a pie sitting in the window. Astra tells Gideon to go take the pie. And my whole thing to Astra is, I'm like, if you wanted the pie that bad, just go get the pie yourself. But she wanted to make Gideon get the pie. And then Gideon was like, no, because despite the fact that Gideon's actually human now, she still has all her computer knowledge and all her knowledge of history in the timeline. And she said that that particular pie is supposed to win the woman who baked it a blue ribbon in a contest. So she was just like, it's historically important to the timeline. And then Astra's like, it's just a pie. And then, Spooner was just like, yeah, let's not take the pie because it's important to history. But then Astra was just like, oh, but Gideon, don't you want to try, like a strawberry rhubarb pie? Then she was just like, yes, on one hand, I actually would like to try the pie. But on the other hand, it's actually not. She was like, it's damaging to the timeline. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And then there was a conflict of interest in her programming. And then Gideon basically like malfunctioned and shut down. Spooner and Astra, like, they pulled her to the side. They put her in a barn. And they were trying to figure out how to reboot her or, like, bring her back. Spooner's powers didn't work on her. So Astra said that there was a spell that she could use. The spell was supposed to bring them into Gideon's mind so they can, you know, like find her and help her and pull her out and bring her back, you know, to reality. So they use the spell, they go in their mind. It was never explained why Spooner and Astra were wearing 1920, I forgot what year they were in, 25, 45, whatever they were in. They were wearing traditional like garb for the time period that they were in. But yet when they went into Gideon's mind, they were all dressed all like cute and sexy and everything. And I was just like, so we're just not going to address why that happened. But you know, so then while they're in there, you know, they're trying to figure out where to go. And then all of a sudden, we get the first returning character for the 100th episode. They bump into Jax. And I was excited because Jax was my boy. And I was very upset that Jax, you know, I understand that the actor himself, like, it was his decision to leave the show. But I feel like he also probably left the show because they killed Martin Stein in the Nazi crossover. And then he probably figured, well, if Stein is gone, there's no reason for my character to remain on the show. But they did a whole season about Vixen and the totems, and they were collecting all the totems and blah, blah, blah. I feel like this was such a layup. I don't understand. Like, to this day, it still bothers me that they didn't do this. All you had to do, if you were going to kill Martin Stein, and you wanted a reason for Jax to stay on the Wave Rider aside from being a mechanic, because they did do this whole thing about Jax wanting to remain a superhero, all you had to do was give Jax the fire totem, and like the problem would have been solved. He would have still, you know, he would have still been the Burning Man, you know, like he would have still been Firestorm. He would have just had the fire totem. To this day, that still like that still haunts like my memory. But yeah, but we get Jax, you know, Jefferson Jackson, and he has a British accent because the actor, he's British in real life. They asked him why he was speaking in British, and then he was just like, I don't know. He's like, I just feel like Gideon, like, you know, she prefers me this way, and then, you know, and it was just a funny thing, so he could continue to speak, you know, in his native tongue. And he said that he was a preserved memory that Gideon kept close to her subconscious, and I feel like that was because Jax was the one who was the mechanic for her for 3 years. So because he repaired her, because he fixed her, because he was the one that took care of her, he always held a special place in there, you know, like in her heart. And there's also a part of me that felt like the two of them kind of had a thing going because they were very like touchy. Like Gideon and Jax were very touchy in this whole episode, you know. But then like Jax ends up telling them, he was just like, listen, all of Gideon's short-term memories have been erased, and, you know, we got to go into her long-term memories. You know, we got to leave her subconscious, go to her long-term memories, help her figure out her long-term memories so we can then, you know, like save her and reboot her. Astra even asked, she was like, well, what happens if we don't do that? And then he was like, well, if we don't access like her memories, we can reboot her, but she'll basically just be like a living, walking computer, and she won't have the personality. And then Astra was like, wait, so she'll still have all the computer knowledge, she'll still be a functioning computer, she just won't have the personality of a human? Then she was like, well, she's like, bet, let's do that. And then Spooner was like, no, we're not doing that. She's like, you know, this is Gideon, like Gideon is Gideon, like we can't, like, you know, they're used to personality Gideon. She's, you know, but Astra's whole thing was she's just getting on the nerves. So Jax said you have to help her unlock her memories. So I'm going to put you into certain memories because her long-term memories were still there. Jax said, I'm going to put you inside of her long-term memories, and then going into her long-term memories, help her unlock those memories, and then she can slowly remember. So they put the two of them in one memory that was only a year ago, which was when Spooner had first joined the team. And, you know, she was sedated on, she was sedated in the med bay, you know, and then Astra even said, she was like, oh, this was the moment where we recruited you for the Legends. Ava came into the room, and then, you know, she was talking to Gideon, and then Ava was just like, you know, like kidnapping a person from the timeline. She was just like, this goes against everything that I was taught. And then she was like, I miss Sarah. And then Gideon was like, I miss Sarah too. And then, you know, they had a whole thing, and then Gideon snapped out of it, and she came back. But she was just like, well, she was like, oh, I remember this memory. She was like, this was a memory of when I first learned love and compassion, and, you know, and feelings for Sarah Lance. And, you know, then she ended up like, she got some of her short term back, and then she kind of like snapped out of it a little bit. So then they take us to another one where, you know, the next memory had to do, he was like, oh, get ready to meet the OGs. And then we go back to some of the original Legends, and it takes us back to season 1. You know, we got we got Hawkman, we ended up getting Ray, we ended up getting Captain Cold. There was a body double that played McRory. And that was cool. Like, it was, then we had another one with Martin Stein. Martin Stein came back. Was always good to see Martin Stein. And of course, you know, he had to do a musical number, and then Gideon did a musical number with him because everybody on the CW could sing, you know. And then, you know, Sarah put on the OG White Canary costume, the sleeveless White Canary costume. And then, you know, both Spooner and Astra got to see the original Legends, and they got to see who Sarah was before she became captain, and they were just like, yo, Sarah was a little aggressive like back in the day, because she still had that assassin in her. So Gideon's slowly remembering the memories, you know, and then like she's slowly like, oh, she was like in this scene, she was like, I found out who the Legends were for the first time. You know, like they even did the funny scene where Rick told them that there was only one bathroom. And, you know, and then even with the Martin Stein, you know, just like she was like the dancing and the sing. And then she started like slowly like getting a lot of her memories back. And, you know, and for me, it was nice. There were, I mean, well, we'll get to the end about who was here or who wasn't there, but then they went to one memory where everything kind of like went astray, where, you know, Jax got into a fight with Hawkman, you know, Captain Cold, he was fighting with Ray, and then everybody got into it, and then Rip Hunter came back. I was like, yo, Rip, like it's weird because like I was confused, Rip with Constantine, and, you know, because of the coats and everything, but I was like, oh, I forgot about Rip, like, you know, another character, he should have never died. Anyway, so Rip is there, and Rip and Gideon always had a special connection. And here's where things got a little tricky, because up until this moment, the memories weren't able to see Astra, Spooner, and Gideon. You know, I mean, Gideon took part in some of the memories because her voice AI, you know, was in the room, and then she just like, you know, like double copied that. But it got to a point where Rip actually tapped Gideon on the shoulder and told her like, come here. And then Gideon walked away and like she followed him. And then at that moment, I was just like, okay, so now like the memories can see everybody. And then, you know, it lured Gideon, the memory of Rip Hunter lured Gideon into one of the containment fields. And then, you know, he was just like, oh, you're always my number one, Gideon. And then she was like, you too, Rip. And then he was just like, but the Legends have corrupted you. And then he jumped out of the way and trapped Gideon inside a stasis field. You know, and then when Rip Hunter, like we found out it actually wasn't the Rip Hunter memory, but it was a virus, a corrupted virus that was actually trying to expunge the Legends from Gideon's memory and trying to reboot Gideon back to factory settings, because according to the virus, it felt that the Legends were a bad influence on Gideon and didn't like the fact that Gideon was turning human and the person that she was turning into. Spooner and Astra, for some reason, never noticed that Gideon left. And then when they finally noticed that she left, you know, like they ran, you know, like then that's when like the memories ended up seeing them. And then they're just like, yo, can they see us? And the memories kind of like turned on them. And then like Jax got them out of there. They went back to like the subconscious where Jax was. And then, you know, that's when Jax told her, he was like, oh, there's a virus in here. And then you guys have to kill the virus. And then, you know, he gave Spooner a gun. And then I guess Astra just continued to use her magic. And he was like, oh, you have to save Gideon, otherwise we're all doomed. So they end up running through the hallway. And then as they're running through the hallway, they're bumping into Legends from Legends Past. They bumped into Zari 2.0 and Beyrad. And then, you know, and that was a funny scene because that was because they're just like, oh, you're not going to get past us. You'll never save Gideon. And then Spooner says to Astra, she's just like, you want to kick some Legends butt? And in the very next scene, the two of them get blasted up against the wall. And I'm like, yeah, it's not that easy, is it? They ended up using the gun. Like they shot both of them. They knocked both of them back to normal. And then they go to the next room. They bump into Nate, you know, like they bump into Zari 1.0. And it was cool to see that. They, you know, then they stopped them. And then the final door, they had to fight, you know, like Ava Lance. They had to fight Sarah and Ava. And then like, you know, they ended up beating Sarah and Ava. And then, you know, they're on their way to the room where Gideon is. Now, what the virus was doing, the virus was basically trying to prove to Gideon that becoming human wasn't a good idea. And by doing that, the virus was showing her like bad memories, because this is the 100th episode. So if we got to take the good, we got to take the bad. And then she was showing Gideon like the scene where Rip Hunter killed himself, where Martin Stein had died, where the Legends got eaten by zombies, the scene where Beyrad died and then Zari couldn't handle it, all this loss, all this anger, like all this pain. And then Gideon was just like, no, she's like, I don't want to do it. She's like, I don't want to be human. And then the virus was like, well, then take my hand, and then we would be evil together. And then right before she took her hand, Spooner and Astra came in, they took a shot at the virus, and then the virus disappeared, and then they pulled Gideon out. And then Gideon was just like, no, she's like, I don't want to be human. She's like, shoot me now. And then, you know, and then they told Jax, they was like, yo, send us to one more memory. And the memory that they sent the three of them to, it was a happy memory of when the Legends were celebrating basically every holiday for the entire year all in one shot. And, you know, that's when they told Gideon, they were just like, yeah, you know, she's like, yes, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of anger, but there's also happiness and there's joy. And like, these are the moments that you got to hold on to. And these are the moments that are worth fighting for and worth living for. And then slowly, you know, Gideon was just like, oh, I don't remember this, but she was like, it makes me feel all warm inside. And then there was more singing involved. And you know, and then after that, Gideon decided, she was like, I'm going to go confront the virus once and for all. And then she walked over to the virus, and in the most humane way possible, instead of Gideon defeating the virus or destroying the virus, because she did have the gun to the virus's head at some point, the virus was like, oh, you're going to kill me. And then she was just like, no, actually. She was like, oh, instead, she was like, we're going to coexist together. There was a part of you that actually kept me alive as well. She was like, we can learn from each other, work from each other. Because the virus's part is basically like the cold-blooded, like, like AI. Gideon's like the warm and the hard. And you need both in life. Like, you need that voice in your head, to get dirty when things need to get dirty, but you also need the warmth and the kindness. And then Gideon told the virus, she was like, oh, I'm going to drive the ship, but you and I are going to coexist. And then, I guess they merged together, or they decided to coexist together. And then, Gideon was like, I'm going to take my journey to find out what it means to be human. And then this was a cool scene because as Gideon was on her way to go back, she was on her way to basically put her consciousness back to snap out of her coma and come back to the real world. As she was walking down the hall to get there, all the legends who were present on the episode, they talked to her. They were telling her what it means to be human. They were just like, yes, there's going to be some ups, there's going to be some downs. It's never going to be good, but it's the pain that makes it worth fighting for, blah, blah, blah. And it was a nice little hallway scene. And then when Gideon gets to the end, to the end, when she gets to the final door, Sarah told her, she was like, welcome to the legends, Gideon. And then when Gideon turned around, that was the photo, the hallway scene of every single character that happened to be on the show. And that was nice. Like, that was very nice. That was cool to see. And then, Gideon goes through the door, she wakes up, and then when she wakes up, she's just like, oh, she's like, my objectives are clear now. She's like, let's go to New York City and save the legends. And then, her and Spooner and Astra, all three of them together. I need a show with like the three of them. Like, I really do. So the three of them are on their way to New York to go save the legends. And then that's how the episode ended. But throughout the course of this entire episode, because I talked about last week, I had made a comment last week about Bishop, because when something happened last week, I forget what happened last week, but it made me think of Bishop. Like, I thought Bishop was coming back. I guess like when the robots, it was the robot. When the robots popped up, I was like, oh shit, like Bishop's back. And then I was just like, oh, I guess I was wrong because we didn't get that. Come to find out I was right because Bishop's back. This takes place like, after because remember in the season finale, they plucked Bishop out of his timeline. They had him help them stop the aliens, and then they put him back in his timeline where he belongs. So now he's at the point now where he's getting ready to launch his Ava program because he's the one who created all the Ava clones. But he was telling one specific Ava clone that he's been having these weird dreams about like alien monsters, and he's also having thoughts of like building a machine. And then he said in his pocket he had this device, that had an AI on it, but he needed to build the software in order to build the AI. Come to find out, in the season finale of last season, he used his tech cloning machine, because remember he did have that machine in the last episode, in the last season. He used his tech cloning machine to copy Gideon, and he now has a copy of Gideon on a hard drive in his lab. When he rebooted it, when he got Gideon rebooted and Gideon activated, we saw the Gideon head come out of the hard drive, and then she was just like, who are you? Where are the legends? And then, he was just like, there are no legends, Gideon. When she said that, that's when he was just like, oh yeah, the legends. And then she was just like, did you make a copy of my program in order to, in order to use me against the legends? And he was like, that's exactly what I did. Then all his memories started coming back. He remembered when he did the copy, he remembered what the legends did. He was like, the legends used me in order to save the world, and then they tried to erase my memory. And then she was like, and then he was like, where are the legends so I can get my revenge? And then she was like, I'll never tell you. And then what he ended up doing, he actually did what Jax, had mentioned to Astra and Spooner, erased her humane parts. He rebooted her, and she rebooted as the same old original AI that we knew from the first season. Because there was also a scene where the virus had taken Gideon to another memory in season 1 of Rip Hunter, because Gideon's whole thing was, she was just like, in season 1, she was like, oh, I don't think the legends are a good idea and we should get rid of them. And then Rip was like, no, Gideon, he was like, we'll need them to save the timeline. And then he reprogrammed Gideon because Gideon's primary function was always to preserve the timeline. But the Rip was like, no, your primary function won't be to preserve the timeline, it'll be to preserve the legends. He was like, you'll learn about them, you'll study them, you'll be, you'll learn to love them, and blah, blah, blah. Bishop erased that programming, and he rebooted Gideon back to factory settings. So now Gideon's just a regular AI computer with knowledge, and she's just going to talk to anybody about the knowledge. And then that's when Bishop said, she was just like, oh, do you want me to help you erase some anachronisms from the timeline? And he was like, a matter of fact, I do, Gideon. And he said, I know just a bunch of boobs that we need to erase from the timeline. He was just like, I got the perfect group of morons. He's like, we're going to erase the legends. So this was cool. This was definitely cool, because I guess now we're going to get AI Gideon versus human Gideon. And also, this now explains the double Wave Rider. Because if Bishop Bishop copied Gideon, I'm going to assume Bishop is going to build his own Wave Rider at some point because he has Gideon, for Christ's sake. Gideon can tell him how to build a Wave Rider. Bishop's going to build his own Wave Rider, and then at some point, someone here's another prediction. I guarantee you, when Bishop builds his Wave Rider, whoever ends up with that Wave Rider in the season finale, well, the Legends are going to end up with that Wave Rider because theirs got blown up. And when the Legends finally get their hands on that Wave Rider, regardless if they take it from Bishop or whatever, I guarantee you in the season finale, that new Wave Rider is going to have more than one bathroom. Mark my words. But that's how we get, I guess that's how we get the whole thing with the ship blowing up. I said, and now we're going to have human Gideon versus AI Gideon because Bishop's going to obviously corrupt, AI Gideon since he rebooted her to factory settings. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. I mean, I'm not mad Bishop's back. Bishop was a good villain. And he does have, the storyline makes sense because he does have significant motivation to continue what he was doing because he remembers. But see, but the thing is, the original Bishop was a good guy and he was a nice guy and he helped them because he was a nice guy. And there was a moment where when he saw himself, be the villain, he actually said to them, he was like, oh my God, do I become the bad guy? And then he said to Nate, and then he said to Sarah, he was like, oh, I'm going to do every single thing I possibly can to make sure that I don't become that person. I don't become evil. And now he basically just turned into the evil person. So is his whole motivation for being evil? He's just mad because they wiped away his memory? I don't have a problem with Bishop being the bad guy. I just want a little better motivation for him to be the bad guy other than him just being mad that they wiped his memory because he was very determined to not be the bad guy before they wiped his mind and sent him back. Like I said, but we'll see what happens. And thank you for tuning in. Man, this was fun. Congrats to Legends on the 100th episode. Some notable faces that were missing that kind of hurt. I would have loved to have seen Vixen or Charlie, Vixen and Charlie. I would have loved to have seen Kendra. The fact that Kendra didn't come back, that hurt. Because I always loved Kendra and I always wanted to see Kendra make a comeback. If I had to choose between Kendra, and Hawkman, I definitely would have picked Kendra. Kid Flash wasn't there. I'm like, bro, you were a legend. What happened to Kid Flash? We didn't get Constantine. I'm just like, we didn't get Mick. And I'm like, Constantine and Mick, y'all were just here. It's not like you were so far removed from the show that you're doing so many other things now they can't find you. You were literally just here, in the last season. You could have came back for the 100th episode, especially Constantine. I understand, the actor that plays Mick, I think he had some issues, with the show, towards the end. It's just only weird that you brought back Captain Cold and you didn't get back Mick, and the two of them are always a package deal. But you didn't get Mick's daughter. Mick's daughter didn't show up, anywhere in the thing. There were some, there were some people that were missing. There were definitely some people that were missing. Their presence was definitely missed. But, but it was overall, aside from those few people, we got Rip Hunter back. We got Jax back. We got Stein. I wish we got to see Firestorm. That hurt. But it was still overall a good episode. And I enjoyed it. So, like I said, thanks for tuning in, and check me out on Twitter, check me out on Instagram. Let me know what you thought about the, about the 100th episode. What was your favorite moment of the 100th episode? Did no Damien Dark? We didn't even get Damien Dark, but, I forgot the girl name. Damien Dark's daughter, Nora came back. She was in the book club. They did show the book club. There was no Mona. If you were going to do the book club, that was the moment to bring Mona back. Gary didn't show up until the very end of the episode at the last second. I said, but it was still cool, but there were certain characters that were missed. But let me know, was there a person that you enjoyed, throughout the Legends journey that you wish would have made the episode and didn't? Was your favorite Legend represented in the episode? And if they were, did you like how they were represented in the episode as well? And where do we go from here? Like I said, hit me up on Twitter and Instagram as well. We got more stuff coming up. We got Batwoman. We're still, riding the end of Supergirl. The Stargirl season finale is about to drop. And like I said, we still got Young Justice and we still got Doom Patrol. So thanks for tuning in, guys. So for the 100th episode of Legend, and I like the intro where they went through all the different Legends logos for all 7 seasons. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. And for the 100th episode of Legends, I'm out this.